Hello everyone, Art Burns here. Hope you're doing well today. So I wanted to talk about parenting and mindfulness again and how mindfulness can help with our parenting. Now this is no matter again what kind of parenting you do, what techniques of parenting you employ, or your philosophy of parenting, all that doesn't necessarily need to change in terms of applying mindfulness to parenting. But the fact of the matter is that mindfulness can allow you to parent authentically in whatever technique or style or philosophy of parenting you choose to employ. Okay, so I want to be very clear about that first. But basically, what mindfulness is the ability to be present with what's happening as it's happening, but not only being present, but being present and being aware of the presence in a way that is accepting, that is non-judging. Okay, now acceptance is a tricky word when it comes to parenting, especially, but in life in general, right? A lot of times I say, that we should be accepting of the reality of what's happening, right? Now that doesn't mean that when your child is drawing a picture on the wall with a crayon, that doesn't mean that you should just, oh, well, that's what's happening. I guess I have to let it happen. The idea of acceptance is actually antithetical to that idea. It's not surrender. It's not acquiescence, right? What it is instead of those things, it's being honest and just accepting what has happened so that we can change it, right? Because a lot of times, okay, again, scenario, child is drawing a picture on the wall. You come into the room and you see it and you go, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to clean that. That's terrible. Now what we've done is instead of just accepting that this has happened, right, we're having a reaction to it, which is going to make it worse, right? Which is going to, take what is a negative situation or something an undesirable situation, and it's going to make it worse because of the emotional value that we add to it, right? Now that emotional value comes from the inability to simply accept what has happened, right? You could, you might snap, you might say something that you're going to regret later, you might show some sort of anger that you didn't really want to, and all this stuff is going to happen, and you're going to have to deal with the residual effects of this emotional action. But what's not going to change is the crayon on the wall, right? The crayon's still going to be on the wall. So that's the idea of acceptance, right? Is that we can, instead of having an emotional reaction to something that is the behavior of our children, we can instead, regulate ourselves to just simply address the thing that happened. And of course I'm just using crayon on the wall as a simple example. It could be anything though, right? But accepting what has happened allows us to now deal with it in a way that is beneficial to the growth of our children and to the understanding of our children, the emotional learning of our children, right? Now this all relates to an essential level of emotional intelligence, which is a byproduct or a very sort of parallel thing to mindfulness, right? Emotional intelligence is simply it's self-awareness, it's the regulation of our emotions, self-regulation. It's understanding the motivation of our emotions. It's having empathy, feeling the other, right? And it's also the skills of how to communicate with one another. That's what emotional intelligence is. And when we practice being paying attention in the present moment, right, and doing so without judgment and with acceptance, as I say, we develop the capacity for all those things, right? We become more aware of, okay, my emotions are high right now because of because of seeing this crayon on the wall, but now I need to regulate that because if I'm going to effectively communicate with my child, then and ultimately teach my child why he or she shouldn't be drawing on the wall, then I need to do so from a place of regulation, right? And understanding motivation. Now that has to do with the attunement that I've talked about here. Okay, there's a huge important factor of parenting, of connecting to our children, that is called attunement, right? And this is essentially the ability to connect with our children on a level of the emotions that lies beneath the behavior, right? So, when the child does something, right, when the child breaks something or draws on something that they know they're not supposed to draw on, or somehow does something, whatever it is that they're doing, it is motivated by the emotions, right? So if we simply address the behavior, then we're not able to then address the motivating force of the emotion behind it, right? So again, it doesn't mean that you just simply let the behavior happen, but what you do is you accept the behavior for right now, and then you address the emotions that cause the behavior. Okay, in doing this, what you're doing is not only are you attuning to your child, which is giving your child the confidence of knowing that somebody is connected to them. They feel that empathy, and that's a very, very positive thing for children as they're developing, right? But in addition to that, what you're doing is you're instilling a level of emotional intelligence in your children, right? And that is something that is going to benefit them far greater than any, disciplinary techniques that you might be deciding to employ. And again, I'm not saying that whatever disciplinary techniques that you choose to do, they're not necessarily wrong, they're not necessarily right, but the idea is, if we can do this all with a sense of presence, with a sense of connection, which comes from this acceptance of what's happening as it's happening, then whatever techniques you're using are going to be more effective, and they're going to be more beneficial in the long run. It's not going to be just a simple, fix to something that's happened, right? Like, something, child does this is the result, right? Like discipline or punishment, right? The idea is that when that happens, right, the child just associates an action with your reaction. And that is what's, that's not effective, right? Because then all that does is, because again, there's an emotional drive behind the behavior, which that is what is that's the thing that you really, effectively, can help the child to regulate that, and to grow into that regulation and develop, like I say, an emotional intelligence that will be with them for the rest of their lives, right? So one of the things that happens when we practice mindfulness, as I said yesterday in the video, we become kind of more authentic, more honest about what's happening, right? Because when we are, truly rooted in the present, and doing so without judgment and with acceptance, and doing so in a moment to moment basis, right? So, which means intentionally, right? Not just, once in a while we get into this present place, we feel in the flow, we have a great day, everything's good, until something happens. But intentionally training ourselves to be in this present moment. When we do that, we develop an authenticity, right? And that authenticity is also something that is shown to be very, very effective in parenting, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that when your children see that you are regulating your emotions, they are going to feel that is okay. That's something that's okay to do, which again leads back to acceptance, right? The idea of mindfulness is never about, it's one of the misconceptions of mindfulness and meditation and, finding your Zen and all these kind of terms that you hear. The idea sometimes, is that, and the misconceived idea is that it's about being happy all the time, or it's about being calm all the time, or it's about, not experiencing negative emotions. That couldn't be further from the truth, right? What it's about is experiencing all the emotions and letting them be, right? Because when we, again, just like the crayon on the wall, when we react to an emotion that we're having, right? Like when we feel this, whatever it is that's going on, something that's not desirable, and we choose to push it away, right? That's where we complicate it all, and we add more emotions on top of the emotions, and before you know it, you're doing and saying things that you wind up regretting, and you're just not. It's not part of who you really are. It's not your intention, right? And so the idea with mindfulness is to not so much, avoid negative emotions, but to regulate the negative emotions. And you do that through allowing them to be, right? To accept them first, right? And so one great technique that I love to tell people who are parents, right, is to really set up, like be deliberate about it, right? Like I even tell people, like if there's a certain chair in the house you can use, or a certain, area of your house, right? That you can allow that to be the place where you go as a parent to regulate your own emotions, right? Like that is something that can be very, very beneficial. Now, it's maybe not for everybody. It's I've had different reactions to this, but the people who have tried it have all told me that it's really, really wonderful. Okay, so the idea here is that you have like call it your regulation chair, right? So when you as a parent are feeling like overwhelmed, and you're feeling like you're about to snap, or you're just having a rough time, right? You can announce very clearly, very deliberately, very openly and honestly that, okay, right now dad has to go into the regulation chair for 5 minutes, because I need to be present with the emotions that I'm feeling, and try to manage the emotions that I'm feeling before I say or do something that I don't really want to say or do, right? Like there's nothing wrong with telling a child that that's what's going on with you. So many times we feel like we have to hide these things and hold these things back, and we have to like be the perfect example, but in fact, showing your imperfection, right, is what's going to allow your children to understand that it's okay for them not to be perfect all the time either, right? And that's something that's very important and very, very beneficial. So I always recommend, either a corner of a certain room, or maybe it's a certain room itself. Like maybe you have like an extra sort of parlor or something. I don't know what your house is like, but for some people it's just as simple as a chair, right? Like just a certain chair in the house that's where mommy and daddy go to kind of regulate their emotions, right? To be aware of their emotions, right? And regulate them, right? And so your kids see you get into this mood, which is very confusing to kids, right? They don't understand, and what happens is they think that they're causing it, right? Which causes a lot of stress for them, which is really not good for them, right? So the idea is, okay, I'm having this thing go on, so I'm going to be very honest about it. I'm going to be very upfront and open about it, and I need to go and regulate my emotions. I need to go and be, allow my emotions to kind of, go on in my body, and I need to understand what's going on. Spend 5 minutes in that chair, right? Like really take like 5 minutes and take that time, and just and like at that point turn on the video, turn on the music, whatever it is. If your spouse or other partner or somebody is not there to help you to watch the kids during that 5 minutes, use whatever you can, right? Don't worry about screen time at that point, right? And so taking that 5 minutes, closing your eyes, and that's where practicing mindfulness is very important, because you'll have that tool to really be present with the emotions that you're feeling, understand them, really get to the bottom of what these emotions are, where they're coming from, and what they're driving you towards doing, right? And as you do that, now you're going to be able to come out of that with a sense of mastery over those emotions, right? And now you've shown your children that process. And that, my friends, is something that's going to be so much more valuable than any other, kind of lessons or addressing of the behavior that your children might be showing you. All right, so I know I covered a lot in this video. If you have any questions, please get in touch with me. Okay, this is really important stuff, and I really would like to make sure that you understand it. And if there's anything that I can clear up, I know again I've given you a lot here today. But if you'd also like to talk about what emotional regulation and techniques for that, and how you can start some very basic practices to instill that in yourself, because it doesn't work if you just kind of talk the talk without walking the walk. Like really, this is really effective when you are practicing mindfulness. And again, that's how mindfulness can really impact in a very positive way our ability to parent, and parent from the heart, and parent from the presence of the moment. All right. I hope that helps you, folks. Again, any questions, hit me up with a comment, send me an email, send me a direct message, get in touch with me. I'd be happy to jump on a call with you for 15, 20 minutes, no obligation or anything. I'll get you started with some very simple practices. It'd be my honor to do that because, parenting is one of the most important things that we do with our lives. And it really does have such a lasting impact. Even these little moments can have such a lasting impact. So that's where, again, mindfulness, being present with all those little moments, really matters. All right, folks, thanks for listening. I wish you well today. I hope you have a great day with your kiddos. And and if you're not a parent, these things still apply. It still will benefit you if you're listening to this or watching this as someone who's not a parent. The same benefits are going to apply. And I could talk to you about that too. All right, thanks for listening. Take care. See you later.